lockdown after a 2-week hiatus. I've been looking after a 3.5-year-old and it's hectic. Well done, all parents out there. We are back, and I decided for this episode we will go with some of our coaches as we move back into professional surfing here in South Africa after the hectic stages of the lockdown. Just a quick one, a big thank you to people who have given me money for this podcast. There's a couple of people, you know who you are. Thank you very much for the support. It really is appreciated in these tough times. And I will be bringing out some Captain Kai clothing this week. It's going to be on pre-order. The link is below and also in my bio. And if you'd like to get some cool Captain Kai hoodies and caps, you can order. And of course, all those proceeds will help me through these tough times. So if you want to get it, check it out below and please subscribe. Right, now introducing my panel for the evening. First up from Mossel Bay, but he's actually in Portugal because he's coaching the German team, Llewellyn Whittaker. Hello, Lulu.
How's it going? All good? Now, I was actually on a meeting with a coach in Portugal.
I'm sure I saw you in gaping pits at some Southern Cape beach break the other day.
That's right. Yeah. Now I was rushing from a Portuguese Zoom meeting with another coach.
All right. Okay. And then joining us from Cape Town, and he's a bit haastig because he's about to shoot off to go and coach one of our top young QS surfers up the coast. Chris Bond, welcome from Cape Town.
How's it, Kai and Lou and QJ? Nice to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and then
Christopher.
From another part of the South African coastline that's been going absolutely bonkers over the weekend, all the way from Belito in the North Coast Salt Rock, Quentin Jones.
Hey, Kai. Hello, boys. What's happening?
Legend.
So we've got, I would say, the South African brains trust of coaching right now, because Lou, you've worked with the juniors and the open team before. Chris, you're currently working with the juniors. QJ, you're also doing a lot of work with the juniors. You're also, all three of you, involved with the coaching of most of our current crop of QS surfers. And of course, as we said, Llewellyn has gotten the spot for coaching the German team looking towards the Olympics. Lou, it's kind of interesting because right now you would have been in Tokyo at the Olympics.
Well, we first had to qualify. So Leo, one of our top athletes, Leon Glatzer, was one spot away from qualifying last year in Japan. Of course, Federico Moraes got the highest placed European surfer. So we could taste the Olympics basically. But this year's ISA was going to be in El Salvador, and that was going to be our last chance to qualify for the Olympics. But because of the people that had qualified that would have to be at ISA and the back count, realistically, to get one of our athletes in the top 20, which is hard, but it's not impossible with the caliber of surfers. A top 20 place finish would have secured us a spot in the Olympics.
Well, that's incredible. Then, of course, Chris, looking at the South African team that would have been at the Olympics, Mikey Fair pretty much was close to that equation, someone you've worked with a lot, and Geordie and Bianca were in the mix. Were you looking at a trip to the Olympics with Team South Africa?
That would have been a dream, yes, but no. Greg Amesy is the coach for the SA Open team for the Olympics with Isaac February. So that combination duo, the two of them have worked together for several years now with the Open team. They were going to be the ones heading to ISA World Games and to the Olympics this year.
And then QJ, it's been a pretty exciting time because we look at sort of all of our top QS surfers right now. Obviously, Shane Sykes is the highest ranked South African right now, someone you worked with a hell of a lot over the years. Geordie Marie right up there with Chris, Aidan Mason-Camp, who's worked with a couple of you. If we look sort of pre-lockdown, South African surfing was looking really, really strong. And then, of course, we've had 6 weeks of most of our surfers, or 8 weeks, even 10 weeks, with most of our surfers sitting idle. I mean, the guys up there by you must be pretty excited to be back in the water and getting it on.
Yeah, I think it's hard because a lot of the guys and girls, I mean, don't forget Sarah, they had a good start to the year. And for whatever reason, we generally battle a little bit in the beginning of the year, the QS guys and girls, maybe just a little undercooked. But yeah, I think it must be quite frustrating for them because, you know, they got off to good starts and a lot of them were looking really strong. I don't think matters have helped. That probably the best winter I've seen on the coast in 10 years. And we've had no wind, light offshores, swell, and normally winter you get those big cold fronts and they come through and wash all the sand away. But literally you can go north or south and pick a point and there's perfect sand. So I think that's killing the boys and girls too.
Now, Lou, I mean, looking at the footage out of Belito this last few days, I mean, surfers, I saw footage of surfers this weekend, solid sort of 8-foot, even 10-foot barrels, very reminiscent of that year in 2011. As someone who's coaching a lot of the QS guys that would have been at that event, I mean, it's pretty heartbreaking that we're not going to see Belito, and there was the possibility of having one of the most all-time events ever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this whole lockdown thing's been a bit of a pain in the butt and pain in the arse, and the guys that are home are actually at least enjoying the winter swell. I think that we could talk for the whole 40 minutes of Zoom just on the swell that all of us have enjoyed. Chris in at Colt Bay. Over here we had Fleers Bay and Claimbrook going off, and then obviously those North Coast spots were firing. But the year has been great for Sarah Bond. I mean, she came out firing with those events in Australia. Shane Sykes, man, that guy was shredding in Newcastle. It was absolutely unbelievable. That one air reverse that he did, I think they gave him a 9 point something for it. I mean, the South African force at the moment is really solid on the QS. And then obviously with Matt qualifying for the CT, I saw UQJ that you were going to go over there and work with him a little bit. And then now this, you know, it's like, oh, come on, you know.
Now, Buddy, I mean, you've been activating. I mean, I was joking with Roddy Tor from Komiki Surf the other day. Lockdown surfing in Komiki kind of happened a bit early for the rest of us. You guys have been getting some work. I've seen some clips from Long Beach, and then of course over, like, you know, like Lou said, over the weekend, some really beaming, like solid Colt Bay. Are the boys showing signs of rust, or is everything looking green light for when competition starts again?
I think I mean, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, so I got to be careful about what I say. You know, I don't know. I'm pretty sure you're actually still not allowed to surf, but anyway, that's a different topic of conversation, as I understand it anyway. So, yeah, there were definitely people in Komiki that were surfing a lot through various levels of the lockdown, especially towards the end. I think the cops over there started to give up because some people were in the water. But yeah, the level of, basically when we got to level 3, I started doing a bit more coaching, or because people were surfing anyway, and a little bit with one of the other surfers I worked with before that. And yeah, the guys are shredding, yeah. The level of surfing, I was just there today working over there, and the level of the guys are surfing is really high. So the unreal signs of rust. And the real positive is a lot of them put time in the gym. So yeah, the people I work with are looking fitter and stronger than ever real time to train. You know, usually when they're competing, they can't do everything. If they're surfing 6 hours, you can't also gym for 2 hours every single day or 6 days a week. It's all just too much on the body. So yeah, the guys are looking really in shape from a training perspective, and now looking good in the water too. So yeah, the guys would be ready if they could compete now. They'd be good to go.
Bring it on.
Now, Quentin, we talk about Maddie, and obviously I had him on the first series from Australia, and you had just left. I think that conversation about you and Beric in lockdown is a story for another time. But I mean, Maddie has been surfing all the way through, and he's looking really sort of bigger and stronger as well. Like, he really looks like he's put on a few kgs and he's looking fit. I mean, you're working with him going into the start of the CT. Obviously, I think that's only going to happen next year now. But he seems very positive. And I mean, the free surfing stuff I'm seeing from over in Oz, he's on fire.
Yeah, well, he's got into a good routine. He decided to stay on. So, from the physical to his diet to, the surfing, he's working with Bottle over there. And he's just got into such a good routine and kind of no interruptions. Obviously, Australia have looked at it slightly differently, and people are exercising and doing what they need to do. So he's actually loving life. I don't think he's enjoying the videos being sent from J-Bay. I think he needs a bit of J-Bay. He spoke to him this morning, and he was down at Lennox, and he said it reminded him so much of home. So, he's all good routine. So, but the thing as well is the CT is not starting in a month's time. It's only next year. So he's got so much more time to grow and develop. So, looking really strong.
All right. So now we've kind of covered the QS stuff, and I think, we've all kind of accepted in the industry that it's a year off. We might see one or two small QSs at the end of the year, maybe Hawaii, like an outside chance just to get some broadcast time more than anything else, and to see some competition this year. And I think that would be a great idea to have the Triple Crown and make that the focus for the year. Maybe see some unsung heroes sort of shining, and especially South Africans. But let's look a little bit more local now. Moving out of sort of the hectic lockdown stages, beaches are officially looking at opening sort of right now. Surfing is kind of back in the green a little bit. People are certainly surfing. I think with fishing and recreational fishing being allowed, that kind of changed the status quo for everyone, because you can't really arrest the surfers when the guys are fishing. So looking at home now, and you guys as coaches, looking at the juniors, for example, I mean, SA Junior Champs, end of September, beginning of October, it's foreseeable. It falls within the parameters. It's a non-contact sport. Yes, there will be COVID sort of things that have to happen, like the judges being 1.5 meters away from each other, but it's possible to do. And right now, I'm pretty sure J-Bay, Vic Bay for Masters, end of October, even East London may be looking at changing the dates for SA Open Champs. Llewellyn, this is a possibility. And I mean, the guys back home are dying to surf heats.
Well, look, I think first and foremost, I mean, Surfing South Africa, I know we're going full out and fighting our plight to allow us to surf and get the beaches open. So I have no doubt in my mind that they too are fighting the plight to get the next event on. But that's a good point that you make. I think instead of trying to focus on too many small events, like, for example, I mean, I had to postpone the Importers Classic, which I've been running for the last 5 or 6 years. You've been commentating every year in the pissing rain and electrical shutdowns and all kinds of shit. But instead of worrying about too many of those contests, I think that's a good point that you make. I think they will be wanting to put on events. And if the timeline is right, why not focus on SA Masters, like you said, in October, and the SA Champs in September? I think that timeline is very realistic within the parameters of beaches opening, health and safety rules regarding social distancing, and what they will have to implement, sanitizing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm sure they're working very hard to do something like that as a minimum,
And Chris, I mean,
for South African surfing.
If we look at sort of the SA events, one of the jokes going around, of course, was when the minister spoke about pro surfing, pro athletes can go back, all the jokes and comments started flying on Facebook and social media. Everyone was like, oh, I better sign up for SA Champs again because I want to be a pro surfer. But I think it's safe to say that if the SA Champs events actually had to happen this year, we'd probably see record numbers, because everyone's kind of been sitting still. No one's been traveling. And I mean, I know personally, I've spoken to a lot of the Masters guys, because I always do that event and I surf in it. boys are frothing, like the girls, the guys, everyone's like, I want to come to Masters if it's at a good wave, because it's going to be an excuse to go travel and actually have a good time and see everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, right now, with everyone having obviously been in lockdown, and we're not allowed to travel between different districts and all of that in South Africa. I think the opportunity for have an excuse to go and surf a good wave with a bunch of mates, I think especially in the Master Division, it's such a, they're incredibly competitive in the water, but outside the water is just everyone's mates. So I think that everyone will be frothing to go and surf that event for sure. And I also think now that, a lot of people, geez, the beaches are being packed here. I think that a lot of people are either unfortunately have lost their jobs, obviously, or they're working from home. The kids have all been homeschooled. So people have been getting quite a lot of water time. So I think you'll find a lot of the guys who, might have not been feeling quite as fit before, actually been spending a lot more time in the water. I saw Howie Gold shredding this evening now. And Titch on his 10th surf of the day, ripping it up. So yeah, the guys have been surfing, the Masters have been surfing a lot. So I think they'd be frothing to go and surf SA Champs if it's possible to do. You got to remember, for it to run, you're still going to have to hold the trials, in the districts beforehand and stuff. So it will be a process, but hopefully can get it all together. And yeah, guys will be amped.
QJ, I mean, you guys, I think Durban and the North Coast have been sort of the last to get back into action. I think down the coast and on the West Coast and everything has been a bit sooner. I think your guys' problem being that, like the eyes on the water are always there because everything's built along the coast, basically. You've been working with some of the juniors up there with Shane and a whole bunch of guys. And I mean, the waves have been pumping. Who's kind of right back in the saddle up there? Who's looking good?
Well, our biggest problem is that the beach is actually still closed because there are no shark nets, et cetera, So, we're kind of patiently waiting. I actually haven't done a session since the beginning of lockdown. I've been speaking to the boys and girls and getting some video footage sent, but obviously no names mentioned. But yeah, the boys are, I'm sure, going up and down the coast. As I say, there's definitely not a problem with crowds because every single point has been absolutely firing. And I mean, you kind of look at the Belito event running, or if it had run this year, I mean, whether you're at Bog Surfers or down at that other place, all three have just been absolutely firing. So I know the kids have been getting in the water, and I'm sure all of you guys have seen all over social media some of the waves that the boys and girls have been having. So yeah, I think as soon as there's a bit more clarity and we can actually access the beaches, I think we've got a long winter still ahead anyway. We're going to get waves. I'm going to get waves. I'm going to be on the inside.
Winter is just starting, and it's been a crazy start. I think here in South Africa, we've been due a good winter. We've had a couple of good ones, but not like those classic winters, and this is certainly looking like it's lining up. Now, one of the common threads of discussion on the lockdown, whether it's been with the juniors who I had on, or the QS guys, or the CT guys, as well as the older team of like Beister and Canning and Greg, is talking about South African junior surfing. And, guys talking about hunger, like the old team all saying there's got to be that hunger. It was very interesting for me, for Geordie and Travis saying, this excuse of the rand and the currency not holding water with them, it should make you more hungry actually to go and perform. I mean, the three of you have traveled as surfers and competitors, and now as coaches as well. And I mean, there's probably not a better person or people out there to sort of give the feedback on that sort of mentality of what's needed for a young South African to get out there and compete and to do well than what the three of you could give. So Lou, I mean, what is needed right now if you're a young South African and you want to get out there and qualify?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. I mean, it's quite a broad question, and it's a very deep. It has a very deep answer, because obviously different generations have had different approaches. I would say the South African lifestyle, or not lifestyle, the South African upbringing with the rand being so weak, difficult to travel, with us being kind of in South Africa and having to spend at least 15,000 rand just to get to an airport hub of London or Dubai or wherever, or 8 grand, and then travel from there. All these and our crime and all. The point I'm trying to make is it kind of molds us into the kind of people South Africans are, because of these certain aspects and challenges we have, in which case I think generally South Africans, the experience I've had being a competitor on tour and working with the kids on tour, they are hungry. The South Africans are determined. They're hungry. They do have that fire in the belly. They want it more. Or not, maybe not want it more, but they really do want it, because when you get to that level and you're in amongst all those hundreds of other surfers that also want it, I think that's why South Africans are still of the top nations in the world. And even though we're a third or an eighth of the amount of people that are on the World Surfing Tour, but we're still one of the biggest surfing nations in the world. And I think it's because of that, because of our environment that makes us the type of people we are, makes us hungry, makes us determined. I mean, even on the coaches side, you've got Dave Reno coaching the English team. You've got myself coaching the German team. You've got Wade Sharp coaching the Japanese team. We're resilient. We make things happen. We're hungry and we're determined. So our environment creates that. But I would say to the South Africans that are on tour, the biggest thing for me is it seems to me that they need a parent or a sponsor to help. I don't find a lot of them are currently prepared to base themselves in somewhere, London or the UK, for 3-4 months, working visa, and get the pounds together and then travel to QS for 4, 5, 6 months. So I think the amount of what they are, their own sacrifice to put into their career, I think could be more. Yeah.
All right, Chris, and I mean, you've been working with a couple of the guys. I mean, you're about to go off and work with Llewellyn now. What do you think the current situation is like for our guys out there?
It's like Leo was saying, this is a topic you could go pretty deep with, but from the juniors, which is where you started off, having coached the SA junior team the last few years, there's no lack of hunger from the surfers over there. I think that there have been some amazing results from the juniors, from Daniel MG last year, Luke Slipen the year before. And if you look back in time, there have consistently been 1 or 2 surfers in the team doing extremely well. So it is up there. You definitely get the sense that the surfers from South Africa haven't traveled as much to the international events before that. So they get sometimes get a bit of stage fright. It's like, oh my word, there's so-and-so. Because you're seeing clips of that kid blowing up everywhere, Then in a heat, he could get knocked out in the 3rd round, which happened, for example, in the States year before last, where like some of the top guys get knocked out really early, but still the mindset is like, oh my word, a guy's got 50,000 followers on Instagram and does the craziest airs. It doesn't mean he's in a heat, But that's a bit of that. So that exposure to the international level more frequently would be good. But even in, you're talking about the comfort level Lou was talking about. If you look in South Africa, I know, when more around my age, the kids they'd all have to travel to the events and stay at like friends' houses and things like that. Whereas now they are used to having a lot of support with them. So if you got a junior event in South Africa now, I'd say 70%, I don't know, of the kids have a parent with them. if not a coach too, and they have really good support in South Africa at these events, and then they go overseas, and then a lot of what they're used to is for the first time in their life isn't there, and that's quite an adjustment for them. You know, competing at this level in this day and age, it's, you know, there's so many factors that come into play that, yeah, for them to be in a good mental space, your head space is going to be the most important thing when you compete overseas. All these guys and girls are phenomenal surfers, and they can all do it, and we've seen them do it, whether it be at home or away. They can get the scores and surf a good heat, but your mental space is going to be the biggest thing that comes into it. So I think that's why a lot of our guys, when they get on the QS, you see that after a year or two is when they start to settle in. I mean, we've got, I don't know how many South Africans there were on the top 100 at the end of last year, but it was 6 or 7, and 1 or 2 just outside that as well. You know, like a Mikey, he didn't really do many events. I think he might have still finished up there though. But yeah, either way, you see guys really start to get into their comfort level with that later on. So they go from having a lot of support when they're a junior, and then there's this gap where suddenly they got to go off on their own, and Lou's talking about going and having to actually do a whatever job, a laboring job or this or that, to try and make the money overseas to go and work. That isn't, you know, that isn't how things have been for many surfers. There might be some, but yeah, I think that it's just a shift, and hopefully the more they get to travel, the more they'll do it. I agree with that interview from, you know, what Geordie and Trav and them were saying, that, you know, it's like there's no excuses. These guys want it, and you got to go out there and do it.
And it's interesting that you know, both of you talk about that work ethic, because, you know, in the big wave chat we had the other day, Frank Solomon was saying, you know, like for him and Josh Redman, they went and sold Christmas trees in San Francisco and did gardening on the North Shore, and that was just to go and try and make names in the big wave arena. That wasn't actually competing even. So it's an interesting thing to, you know, you want to do the QS. Your little sort of glory picture of that is like your sponsors pay, and off you go and compete. As a South African, that's maybe not the reality. I mean, Quentin, you've worked with guys for a long, long time now. I mean, you've seen some kids come, they go. The ones that kind of make it are the ones who maybe have a bit more of a work ethic.
You know, I'll start with the negative. To be honest, I don't think we've got the talent pool like we used to have. There's some phenomenal junior surfers, but all of you coaches think back to the days of it, and not to it. It was Godfrey, Berwick, Mfeb, the Staples, the Woods brothers. I don't know if I said Matt and Brendan Gibbons, and there was such a massive talent pool, and so we kind of got away with not having to travel as much. But in the last couple of years, we've got some phenomenal surfers, but we don't have 16 in an age group like we used to have. So for a while, we were kind of left behind. But on the positive, I don't know if any of you guys noticed, but it started mid-year, and you just saw how the QS guys started feeding off each other. When I was in Europe, in Portugal, you could just see everybody supporting each other. So they've come together, and, you know, everybody goes down to the beach to watch, you know, their fellow South Africans. And the other thing that I think has grown immensely amongst the guys in the QS is they're willing to impart some of the knowledge that they've gained over years. You know, Geordie spent a lot of time with Maddie, giving him tips and helping him along the way. And at the beginning of the year, we did a little camp, and we invited a few of the Groms along, and then Berwick, Shane, and Maddie was there, and it was amazing listening to them. I mean, there were a bunch of us down there, and we didn't get involved at all. Dinner was served. You didn't hear a peep because they'd surfed all day. But then after dinner, you got to listen to the likes of Berwick and Matt chatting to these Groms, and actually just, so I think the reason why suddenly the results are, you know, we've had a pretty good start, and towards the end of last year, I mean, Davey winning in Hawaii, Maddie qualifying. I think the results, we're getting more consistent with the results because we're coming together, and it's been pretty rad watching the guys chatting and helping out. I mean, you know, and everybody's been included. I mean, Slade stayed on. You can name any of the boys, and they were all down there watching. So yeah, I think we do have the will and drive. I just think we were short of a few tools. And what's been really awesome is that the older guys are now imparting the knowledge that they've gained over the years on tour. And as I say, the likes of Geordie and Beric and people like that, they definitely help the juniors and help the coaches too, because they actually sit and chat now. So it's I think that's where we're at. I think we're looking good, and I'm looking forward to next year. I think it's going to be a massive year for South Africa.
All right, so we look at then lastly really at sort of junior surfing right now. And I mean, I've spent a lot of time with all three of you on cold, windy beaches at junior contests over the years when I'm not in the booth. And I think it's an interesting situation right now for South African surfing. I mean, I said in the girls interview, like I feel like we've got some phenomenal young girls. I mean, if you look at Zoe Stein, incredible. Like she's already surfing opens and stuff at World League. But like QJ says, the pool is quite small. And for me, it feels like really, especially in the girls, but even in the guys a bit, we really need to grow that pool of junior surfers again, Llewellyn. Like we need to start drawing kids back into the junior series and into surfing essays and the provincial events. And it's a tough one because there are events, like, you do your event, Billabong, there's a whole bunch of stuff, but I just feel like we're not really getting all the kids to come and surf.
Yeah, look, I agree 100% with QJ and with Chris. My theory was always that it's in South Africa, we have big fish in a small pond. So what Chris is saying is like, they get overseas and it's like, oh my gosh, there's that guy, and we're a big fish in a small pond. Saying what QJ is saying is the pool isn't big enough. But I do see the efforts of Surfing South Africa. I know they're busy working on a before shutdown. I was doing some work with Will and Roxy from Emporium with FTB, and I know they are working hard on like an inter-schools foundation in the Western Cape, really getting that going. And then you do have the likes of all the surf schools in Cape Town, those Waves for Change and all that. And then you got Liam Wood in Hout Bay doing his thing with his Groms, and Chris working with the guys. So I think there is a feeder system, but we got to get it to the schools, and ultimately what happens is it's a pyramid effect. The bigger the foundation, so as coaches, obviously we're going to be promoting surfing because it also affects our livelihood, and so then you're going to get the other guys on the other hand. They're going to go, what the hell? What do you want to promote surfing? It's a soul sport. Leave surfing alone. Bobby Martinez. But the key would be to grow the base. I mean, we've got enough learn to surf schools in South Africa. I think it's about feeding it into the next level, the inter-schools. And I know Surfing South Africa has that kind of system in place. I know on a sporting level, they've got that system in place regards to, as a district, you need to have different categories, and then you've got to belong to this district, and then the district must belong to Western Cape. And so that system and structure is all in place. It just takes time and then ultimately the bigger that base is, the more chance you have of people, the creme de la creme rising to the top once they go through all these different phases. I mean, over the years, I've had plenty of kids come into my surf school. I get them to a certain level, but they don't reach the ultimate level, and then they get dropped. They lose along the way, come under 16. They might not even get as far as under 18, depending on the results, So I think the bigger the base, the more chance we've got of something filtering more people filtering to the top.
And Chris,
that's my theory anyway.
I kind of agree with Llewellyn. We want the Cremora, the junior.
Oh, no. I'm going to throw something into that though, which I found, this is something that keeps striking me whenever we go to the ISA World Junior Champs for the SA Junior team. The comps have always been in beach breaks, right? So here's a question, or not, it's a rhetorical question. How many contests are there in South Africa in just like random beach breaks? You know,
probably,
Belito,
probably Nelson Mandela Bay. That's about it.
The only one. PE,
Yeah,
the Grom Games.
right? But if you look at PE, it breaks in a pretty consistent spot. That's not a rippy beach break. That's with multiple peaks. You got like, it's pretty much everyone sitting in the same place, you know. And then you got to look at a long beach. That's like one peak, and it's very easy to read. Yeah, you can go a little bit further down, but it's still obvious. Belito, you know, most people are sitting in the same place, surfers. So you compare it to where you go overseas, and now you got like 2 peaks, maybe even 3 peaks. You got rips coming through as the tide changes, and our surfers aren't used to surfing beach breaks. A little off topic, but we're not used to competing in beach breaks, shall I say? So I think that's also a part of where you get surfers. If we had more events in beach breaks, I think you wouldn't find the kind of that cream always just sitting at the top. We get pedigree surfers out of South Africa. You know, you look at our QS surfers, you put them in good waves, you know, they're phenomenal. But now you put them in a little 2-foot beach break, and luck of the draw, they may or may, if they get on a good wave, they'll make it. You know, not as quite as good as making something out of nothing. And I think the result of that also is that in good waves, if you've got other people that aren't quite on that level as a surfer, even if they're a good competitor, they're probably going to struggle to beat those top kids, which makes them less amped to go and compete. So actually, the number of entries in the junior events aren't as many as we'd like them to be. We'd like a much bigger, stronger pool of junior surfers. And I think that a part of it is if you're surfing events in, you know, whether it be Mossel Bay in a pool, whether, you know, Vic Bay, Seal Point, J Bay, Mahoon, you know, all of them, it's like the best surfers are almost always gonna rise to the top. You can predict your top 4 surfers in every division pretty easily, and it actually makes other guys who are kind of getting to that level really struggle to compete with them. Whereas if you stuck them in a rippy beach break, those guys would be getting beaten more often. So yeah, I think that pool needs to be deeper, and we want to see more kids competing. And then of course there's what Llewellyn said of, you know, it's those kids also need, you know, the work to be put into them to get them to that highest level. From making your provincial team, let's say, to then making your national team is another big step. And even to be a good surfer, to then make your provincial team is a big step. So just getting more development on that level is really important in South Africa, and it's not really happening at the moment, in my opinion. And I'm as guilty.
That was a good opinion. I like it. So we're going to get cut off.
Controversial.
But QJ, just to finish off, a quick one from you, because we might get cut off.
Yeah, very short and sweet. It's
okay. Recording. All right, I lost them. 40 minutes is the limit on Zoom, but we're back just to finish off because Lou and Bondi were saying, QJ, they wanted your thoughts on that last point.
You know what? This is a subject we can talk for hours on. You know, and we can look at the beaches. I mean, when we grew up a few years ago, the guys were still and girls were still getting dropped at the beach, and they can surf all day. So to be honest, I agree with getting into the schools, and I agree with Chris, but to be honest, and unless we have a safe environment to be able to drop the kids and for them to start at a younger age, you know, that's the only way we're going to go forward. And it's going to take somebody with time. There's no money in it, and you know, that's kind of what it comes down to is the numbers. You know, you've got 400 rugrats in the old days, like hustling at New Pier and getting a smack from one of the bigger boys, but there were so many of them running around, and now we don't have that. Obviously, Kai, you're part of Elembe, so you spend a bit of time up on the north. And there are a lot more Groms there now, but still not to the extent, you know. And you know, it's almost like social media's got more chance of growing its numbers than surfing has, because the kids are just on their phones all day now, and the parents are worried about dropping them at the beach. And yeah, We don't have enough babysitters. That's it.
Yeah, well, we're going to change your guys' mandate shortly. You're going to become babysitters like I am.
Yeah, babysitter. I'm in.
Uncle Daycare. It's a real thing. We're going to start Uncle Daycare for surfing in South Africa. It's coming. All right. So just to finish off, while we're coming back, and Chris Bond was worried about getting chased down by old buddies who are cross with him for mentioning them on air. We won't mention names again. Quentin threw down quite a serious challenge there, I'd like to say, just to finish off. He threw down a challenge saying he's back in the lineup. He's doing good things. He's getting fit. Are you still on the durries, by the way?
No, we do not drink and we do not smoke.
Okay, so that's good. So then I'm taking him seriously.
Yeah.
QJ, you're looking good, bro. You're looking really good.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I know.
So the coaches' heat got to happen at one of the contests. The three of you, I mean, Shane Thorne, coach, like there's a couple of O's you have to be in on this heat. I think it's time. It's time for the coaches' heat. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. We've been talking about it. We stand on the beach at SA Junior Champs. Oh, coaches' heat. You joke about it on the mic. Oh, let's do a coaches' heat. Let's stop joking about it. Let's do it. And then we'll see who's inside QJ.
But I'm that old that I get first priority consistently.
Whatever, bro.
You two grommets can fight over who's going to have second, third priority.
Well, look, also remember,
I'll go left, don't worry.
Yeah, that's fine. Go left, but also remember, I get 3 chances to catch a wave.
right,
And only after 3 chances of paddling and missing do I lose priority.
No, there's none of that bullshit, bro.
you guys, but listen,
Oh, brother.
seriously, you guys need to remember that I'm going to throw 2 names in the pot now that are both accredited coaches, Royden Bryce and Greg Emsley. So you've got them to deal with as well.
Awesome.
Makes it more exciting for the spectators on the beach.
No, to hell with that. That's more people in the water, Lou. First off, and second off,
Shane Thorne's
you know what?
in the coaches' heat.
Yeah, Shane can be there. He's done his time on the beach. Greg hasn't done his time. He hasn't done 10 years yet. You know, to hell with that. So Greg's out. And,
so you have to have done 10 years.
Minimum.
Minimum.
Right. The regulations for the coaches' heat are coming out. Right, boys, before it gets too long. So first of all, thank you for being on the show. It's been great having the coaches. I'm sure we'll get some of the other coaches. I mean, Greg was here more as a CT surfer. We'll get a couple of guys. I think a lot more to talk about. So as with almost everyone on this podcast, we're going to have to do this again sometime. I hope all of you are not arrested. I hope all of you get some waves and keep scoring. And I hope that your athletes, more importantly, are getting the work done, getting the clips in so that they can get that content out and also obviously get ready for contests. And like I said, let's hope that before the end of the year, we start seeing some local contests in South Africa, whether it be Surfing South Africa, Open, Junior and Masters Champs, even some Pro-Am / club contests. Like, let's get it on. And any last words from the three of you for surfing in South Africa?
Surf hard, don't give up.
Surf hard, don't give up. Yeah, I'm just going to say that I think it's been a good vibe amongst the coaches in South Africa as well in the last few years, which has been awesome. So, like, you know, being able to sit here and chat to Llewellyn and QJ in this way. I mean, we discuss these things whenever we see each other and also independently of that. So, you know, it's just great working with everyone who's involved in surfing in South Africa. So, yeah, it's awesome. And thanks, Kai, for having us.
QJ?
Yeah, thanks, Kai. It's good to have a catch up and see familiar faces, and hopefully we actually see each other at a contest soon, and we can have an orange juice and a catch up.
Awesome. Well, there you go.
No coffee either.
Yeah. All right, guys. Yeah, just nice catching up with all of you again, and looking forward to seeing you on the beach again. And all the best to the both of you, for all three of you, for the endeavors in the future. And good luck with the challenges that you're trying to overcome right now. It's been awesome.
Well, thanks to all three of you legends for being on the show. Of course, all three hardened competitors back in the day, and now coaching and with great success. Three of the guys steering the sort of competitive ship here in South Africa with our top juniors, and we'll definitely have them back on the lockdown at some point. For the rest of you, don't get caught. Enjoy the surf. I'm certainly back in the water. I'm not scared to say it. And let's hope that we have some events on the calendar soon for South Africa so the boys can get some training in. I'm certainly hoping that I can surf some heats and commentate on a couple of heats, face mask and all. And remember to please subscribe. Every subscription helps me. And again, the link for the new Captain Kai wardrobe is down below. If you want to order a hoodie or a cap, go for it. It will definitely help me do what I do. Again, gents, thank you so much, and can't wait to speak to you again soon. Cheers.
I kept
Thank you.